It is live before lock, UFC on ESPN number 9. It comes down tonight here in just under 50 minutes from now. Pete, how you doing here on Fight Day?
Hey, man, I'm so excited right now. Apologize about the delay, but we're here to talk some fights, take your questions. Honestly, this is my favorite part. I love interacting with you guys, and just seeing where your brain's at on some of these contests, some of these fights and everything. So let's get into it.
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions already in the chat, so you can leave a question right here on the YouTube chat. Of course, be sure to give a thumbs up here on the video. One thing that I'm sure is going to come up, a question, smaller cage. We talked about this on Thursday on the strategy show, Pete. A fact of it benefits grapplers, and I think in the main event, you look at the fact of it's 5 feet less. One of the things about Woodley is he's a guy who plays a lot against his back, against the fence, moves around a lot. So that's going to play a big factor. I know when we were talking earlier, you think it's going to play a factor in Chookagian and Shevchenko?
Yeah, so, the smaller cage definitely favors grapplers, but it also might lead to more action from some non-volume type of fighters. So you may be looking at some higher significant strike totals than usual because of the smaller cage. I think in Tyron Woodley against Gilbert Burns usually likes to press his opponents anyways, and Woodley tends to put his back against the cage. So I feel like Woodley's going to somewhat be forced to engage and fight more often than he usually does. So that makes me want to have a piece of Woodley. I think a 5-round fight kind of favors Woodley, and Burns necessarily isn't built for 5 rounds in my opinion. So the Chookagian and Shevchenko fight, Chookagian usually dances around and kias and makes noise with her strikes and kind of just pitter-patters her opponents. But she's going to be limited with the space she can move around with. And I think if you look at some female fights, if it's going to be a striking match, sometimes the volume is going to be there for them to score decent. So at 7,700, I don't hate Chookagian as a value play.
So let's get right into the questions here, Pete. Also, one of the things we are going to talk about is the captain contest that's now on DraftKings, especially the fact of I really don't think it's possible to put Mackenzie Doran in a captain position there. But first up, let's go to Alex, who says, need a little read on Quintero or Billy Q and Spike Carlisle fight. I believe this will be fight of the night.
Yeah, I love the fight. I'm targeting the fight a bunch. I actually am favoring Spike Carlisle a little bit more. I think a lot of people don't realize that you can make improvements upon your career. And early on in Spike Carlisle's career, you notice he had cardio issues. He still might because he's a big guy. With that being said, I feel like him training with Beneil Dariush is going to help him and prepare him for a fight like this if Billy Q wants to take him to the mat. Like I said, it's a 60-40 for me, but I am favoring Spike Carlisle in that fight.
Next up, let's go down the line here. When the commenter says Carlisle sucks after first round, and that's something, Pete, me and you have talked about extensively this week. My concern with Spike in that matchup is if he doesn't get the stoppage in the first round, where I think Billy can take over the fight in the second and third round with his grappling.
Yeah, so it's tough to say because Billy's tough as nails, but we have seen Billy in some terrible positions. And, eventually that's going to catch up to you where somebody's going to take advantage of those, bad positions. And I think that Spike Carlisle has the ground game and capability of putting Billy Q down there in bad spots and keeping him there for ground and pound. And, you think about Billy Q's struggle on The Ultimate Fighter and then on the Contender Series as well. Like he was getting worked, but then had a nice come from behind victory. So, like I said, I'm leaning Spike. I think that he has the grappling to somewhat negate Billy Q, even though he did struggle with takedown defense early on in his career.
Next up, it says, this is from Josh Neal. How much cash is reasonable to leave on DraftKings?
It all depends on how contrarian you want to be. I say there's no limit, to be honest. It's a fight. It's not like it's unlike other sports where, you could really pay up for some nasty pitchers or whatnot. In a fight, if you like some guys, don't fall in love with the salaries. Just pick the fights the fighters that you think are going to win.
Next up, questions about Chookagian or Royval.
Okay, so let me say Chukagian or Royable. I would say Chukagian is safer. I mean, wouldn't you agree? She's one of the best female fighters in the 125-pound weight class, and just fought, Shevchenko's sister Valentina. So, I think people are somewhat, looking past Chukagian and thinking that she's a bum or for whatever reason, but she's beaten a lot of, top people within the division. Royable has GPP upside because of his quick finishing ability, but let me tell you, dealing with the awkwardness of Tim Elliott is not fun. So in that instance, I would say Chukagian.
Yeah. Alex saying just watched a lot of Royval. He was impressive. The thing about Royval is the fact of if he's going to win, it's likely going to come in the opening round, and that to me is it's risk reward. We talk about that all the time where I think in that fight, Tim Elliott's ceiling is just so much higher because of his scrambling ability with the takedowns.
Yeah, we've seen Tim Elliott perform well against UFC caliber opponents, taking down Luis Smolka 12 times. In my opinion, one of the best pound for pound fighters ever is Demetrius Johnson, and he took him down 4 or 5 times and won some rounds in that fight. So, Elliott, don't look at his record. I would say, look at his resume and who he's fought. And has he been caught by some people in some slick submissions? Absolutely. Could Royable catch him because he's so slick off of his back? Absolutely. That's why he's a great GPP play at 7,500, because he's one of the guys that if he wins, he's going to outperform his salary like crazy.
One of the comments says, and I definitely do not agree with this comment, Weaver going to eat on Roosevelt. I highly disagree. That to me, it's take Roosevelt Roberts or I think look, if you're looking, if you're in the big GPP and you want a low ownership fighter, Brock Weaver is going to be easily less than 10%, maybe 5%.
Yeah, I'd say Brock Weaver is the ultimate leverage play. I mean, if you're just playing based off of the ownership that, if he does win, you could shoot up the rankings. I don't really see that happening against Roberts. The only way I see Roberts really having trouble is if he runs into cardio issues. And, Weaver seems like he has good cardio, but I also think he hasn't fought somebody with the skill level of Roosevelt Roberts. So I'm backing Roberts big time.
David asking about the MVP on FanDuel, and for me, I'm looking at who's going to win a first round. So I look at Mackenzie Doran. I think you have to look at Tyron Woodley. I mean, we know how fast and explosive he can be. I think that you have to look at Daniel Rodriguez, especially with his pricing, because his pricing was based on when he was supposed to fight Kevin Holland. So now if you're in the captain's contest on DraftKings, they adjust his pricing. So you're not getting that value that there. And I would say this, and you brought up an interesting MVP option is Chukagian.
Yeah. And I don't feel like many people will go the route that I'm going for the DraftKings captain spot. And it's because I want certain fighters in my lineup, and obviously I'm taking stands on certain fighters. I could probably make an argument for every fighter on this card of why they could win or whatnot, but I'm taking some stands. And the people that I want in my lineups, like I want Mackenzie Doran and maybe Roosevelt Roberts. Those are the 2 9,000 options that I'm heavily favoring. And I also want myself some Rodriguez, despite the price elevation in the captain spot. On the captain contest. So I need a cheap person to put in the captain spot. And now going back to what we said about the smaller cage, I'm going to take a shot at Chukagian in my captain spot. Maybe this, makes her engage more, and maybe she lands more strikes, and maybe she's a little pissed off and wants to make a statement on the younger sister, or older sister rather, but the lesser sister. So I think if you go cheap in the captain, you could definitely stack up with some studs.
That's one of those fights that I'm still kind of shaking my head. The fact that Chukagian, number 2, number 3 flyweight, in the UFC is the underdog in this fight. And I think it's, and look, I don't know if this is UFC matchmakers just trolling Chukagian this one to give her Shevchenko's sister, but Antonina is not her sister. So to me, I'm more looking at, definitely the Chukagian side in that matchup. This next question goes, you guys have a feel for DK Cash, not sure how to approach the main event and the Billy Q versus Spike fight. We talked about this on Thursday with the main event. I think the only thing that concerns you about the main event is if Woodley does not get that finish, early on in the fight, because when you look at his history, he's not a volume puncher. And that's what scares you if this fight ends up going 25 minutes is will he land enough significant strikes that is going to make you happy and also be in the optimum lineup?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid argument, but what happens if Woodley goes out there and says, you know what, I want to prove that Burns is not on my level and I should be fighting Usman, or I want my belt back, and goes out there and uses his wrestling and, knocks Gilbert Burns down several times. I feel like he should be heads and shoulders above Gilbert Burns in every department, obviously not the jiu-jitsu department, but I think that outside of his back getting taken, he should dominate this fight. And I would be absolutely shocked if I'm incorrect on that. It's a fight. Anything can happen. And I hope the old Woodley returns.
Thomas says not crazy about this event, but probably Abreu and Smolka. The Abreu Hill fight, to me, that's a question of, can Abreu get the fight to the ground? To me, if you tell me that this fight stays on the feet, the more I favor Jamal Hill. I do know that Hill has brought in some different wrestlers because of what happened in his last fight, of Stochik just being able to take him down. The Lewis Smolka fight, if you're looking for a cheap play and you think that fight's going to go all 15 minutes, which I think there's probably a good possibility it's going to go all 15 minutes, I would more look at that as a cash games play as opposed to a GPP.
Yeah, I think that Smolka will be pretty popular among the 7,000 options. I mean, if you look at his output, I mean, the guy's averaging 72.8 DraftKings points per fight, and each fight is averaging 10 minutes. So that goes to tell you that he's, usually finishing guys or putting them in bad spots, or he gets finished himself. But I have a feeling it's going to go to decision. I really do. I think you're right on that. He's going to be popular because of how cheap he is at 7,100. I don't hate the play because the guy's long and the guy's good. He's beat some great fighters, Ben Nguyen and all that stuff. So could he beat Kenny? Sure. Is it a fight that I feel is a necessity in your lineup? I don't. I mean, I could be proven wrong. I'll tell you, I think Casey Kenny over on FanDuel is pretty sneaky. And the reason being is because Smoke is going to want no business standing up with Casey Kenny. And Casey Kenny's not some world beater standing up, but Smoke is going to be shooting takedowns. He stands up enough until he feels uncomfortable, and then he wants to take you to the mat. And if Kenny's in your MVP spot and you're getting takedown, defended takedowns, you could shoot up the ranks. But, it's a fight that I'm not too heavy on.
Sam has a question about the FanDuel MVP. He lists 3 fighters.
Okay.
Dern, Rodriguez, or Hill. If I was going to rank those 3, I would rank them Dern, Rodriguez, Hill.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, Hill's I think I have only like 2 or 3 lineups with Hill, and it's just because I'm a little bullish on Abreu or I'm fading the fight. I think that Hill's performance is probably more of his opponent being a standing punching bag rather than his skill level.
And of course, be sure to head over to awesemo.com for all the great coveted tools that we do have over the site. Sign up for the Awesemo Plus MMA weekly package for $8.95, where you'll get access to all Awesemo's coveted tools. Of course, be sure to go to awesemo.com/join and take advantage of this offer, and follow Awesemo on Twitter at awesemo_com. Next question is Woodley or Burns or both in DK cash? No on both. I just, to me, if you're going to play, if you're a one lineup player, to me, it's Woodley. I don't, if you're going to play multiple lineups, I don't think there's nothing wrong with putting Burns in there, even though I think Woodley's going to get the job done.
Yeah, I think Woodley's a good cash play, and I think it's because I've seen him perform at the high level, so I have no problem putting him in there in my lineup. I don't like stacking fights. It's just not my thing. If an optimal lineup consists of a stack, then so be it. But it's very difficult to stack a fight, get it correctly, and then get enough points, in that loser fighter to, make up for possibly 100 points from a different fighter. You understand what I'm saying? Like that's very tough to do. And, if you're going to do that, you can play around with Fantasy Cruncher and all that, but it's not my strategy.
Next up, Jason Miller says struggling with main event only lineup, Weavers or Ciphers.
Oh God. Okay, but
like if you told me,
he has to do that, right? He in a main event. I mean, how many fights are in the main event? Let's see. Let's go. I want to see this real quick.
So your main card is Woodley Burns, Ivanov Sakai, Billy versus Spike, Roosevelt versus Brock, and Mackenzie versus Cyphers.
So he has to have two fighters from one. He has to stack a fight, essentially. Has to, because there's only 5 fights in 6 spots. So, okay, are you going to stack the Dern Cyphers fight? Bro, I say no. Call me crazy, but I feel like Weaver Roberts is going to go to a decision, but I think Weaver could literally be getting destroyed. Obviously, if you're looking at a fight to stack, the Carlisle-Quarantillo fight, I think makes the most sense of the main event fights based on the scrambling ability and the high output for both individuals. I would definitely not stack the heavyweight snooze fest and perhaps stack the main event in case it goes 5 rounds, but I highly doubt that.
Next up says, do you like Rodriguez in MVP spot on FanDuel GPPs? Thanks, been playing MMA a month and we're learning a lot from you guys. DJ, I appreciate you tuning in. Rodriguez in MVP spot. I like that idea.
It's not horrible. I mean, let's just say that I was watching a lot of Rodriguez's film, and he should have the skill advantage over Green. A little knowledge about Green. Green's coming off a shoulder surgery, a hand surgery, and a rib injury, and just took the fight on 2 or 3 days notice. So the guy hasn't had a legitimate training camp. Granted, everybody on this card is taking the fight on short notice, but I feel like Rodriguez has already been to the big stage, already performed against a guy in Tim Elliott, was already on the Contender Series. It's just asking a lot for Green to also move up in a weight class from 155 to 170 and make a splash on his, first impression. Could he do it? Yeah, he's aggressive. But when I look at him, he's aggressive, but I feel like there's no thud to his punches. It's just like they're empty shots. And what I mean by empty shots is they're there, but there's nothing behind it. And I think that Rodriguez does have some pop in that left hand and can catch him or submit him.
And Rodriguez is going to be one of the highest owned fighters just because of the pricing. Everyone's going to take advantage of that pricing. John asked a question that's related to something you were just speaking about. Can you play Billy and Spike? Play Billy and Spike on DraftKings is going to pop off like Landwehr and Elkins. You kind of basically mentioned that if you were going to stack a fight on the main card, that was definitely one to look at. Next up says Woodley or Roberts on DK for cash.
This might sound crazy, but I'd probably say Woodley because he's cheaper, and I've seen him perform at elite levels. Roberts, yeah, he's 9-1, but he lost to Vince Pichel, a couple fights ago. Could he lose to Brock Weaver because he just gets tired? Yeah, anything can happen. He could throw a kick and slip and then lose a round because he's on his back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would much rather take the former champ in Woodley.
Next up, Elliott or Kenny FanDuel cash?
Elliott or Kenny. I don't think you could go wrong with either. I think Elliott, though, based on the upside, I do. The one thing about the Kenny Smolka fight is I think Kenny's going to be able to negate the takedowns of Smolka. So it's going to be a standing fight, and we know what FanDuel does is they favor strikers. So that's a good question. I don't hate either one. If you guys wouldn't mind, just hit that thumbs up for us. We appreciate you guys. Shoot some questions in the comments, and we'll help you out.
Next up says, do we think Abreu stays on the feet with Hill or nah? I mean, look, just based on the last fight, you have to imagine Abreu's corner is the game plan is let's take the fight to the ground.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't stand up, because if he stands up, he's going to ruin a lot of my lineups. And, I'm being transparent with you guys. I have Abreu in a lot of lineups and not too much Hill. And it's a bullish take, but I just think Abreu's I said it last week or 2 weeks ago that I tend to favor the overall, better fighter, the more well-rounded guys. And Abreu, Hill's just a striker.
Is Mackenzie Doran a good captain on FanDuel? I say yes, just because I think she's winning the fight in the first round.
Yeah, I think she just does whatever she wants. I mean, we saw what Macy Barber did to Hannah Cypher. Like, we saw what Angela Hill did to Cyphers too, of, controlling her on the mat. I mean, I think Mackenzie Doran could do anything she wants with a hand tied behind her back when it hits the floor.
Casey Kenny, Louis Smolka. To me, I like Casey Kenny to win the fight. When I talked to Casey Kenny last week, and something to note that a lot of these fighters got these fights last Wednesday, so it's literally a week of preparations. I think you could outside looking in say, maybe Casey goes to his wrestling here against Louis. And when I talked to him, I definitely did not get that indication. I think he's going to keep this fight on the feet. Also, should be noted, his coach has fought Louis Smolka in the past.
Yeah, Kenny should have the advantage in the grappling, but if he does go to the grappling, that's probably the only spot that Smolka survives. I mean, let's be honest, Jason, Smolka's not going to stand up with Kenny. So I don't think that what he's saying is crazy. It makes sense. For DraftKings, we want Kenny to go to his grappling because he's incredible at grappling. Has some good judo as well. But if I was fighting Smolka and I'm Kenny and I have such a significant advantage on the feet and the ground, I have a slight advantage, just keep it standing, pick them apart and use your takedown, defense to keep it up.
Next up, Morgan asks, what does Burns have to do to win this fight?
Burns has to take down Woodley or press him against the cage. Now, the problem with that is I don't think that Burns is big enough to do that. Now, I know he looked pretty big at the weigh-ins, but that's probably because Tyron Woodley was a little sucked out and is a big 170-pound fighter. Woodley has the strength advantage and the wrestling advantage. Burns, I have seen people take Burns down that should have no business taking him down. Michelle Prazeres is a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. It was kind of throwing Burns around, and Michelle Prazeres, I think, is like 5'4" or something. He's an incredible grappler, but he's nowhere near the stature of Tyron Woodley.
Next question. What fights will finish early?
Okay.
I would say I think Woodley Burns has got a good chance to end early. If Spike Carlisle wins, I think he wins in the first round. Mackenzie Doran, I think, is definitely Daniel Rodriguez. Those would be my top ones.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of it. I'm looking at the list right now. I think you hit it.
Next up, best FanDuel MVP fighter. I think we went over that one. Mackenzie Doran, I think, has got to be the one you really look at.
Yeah, I don't mind Roberts either. He's has the potential, and he seems a little irritated of Brock Weaver's, history of potentially harming animals. So he's like really angry about that and wants to make a statement. But don't read too much into tweets because half the times when people are so verbal with each other, those fights tend to be snooze fest, or it just doesn't tend to be. It's like faint, and they don't really engage too much. I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of press each other against the cage for majority of the rounds.
Josh asks, is Tim Elliott a safe play in GPP?
Yeah, 100%.
Next up, thoughts on Morales versus Gutierrez fight. I don't like this in terms of, and we talked about this on Thursday, not just because I don't like taking the first fight, but just based on how I see the fight playing out. I think it's going to be a fight on the feet. I think it's going all 15 minutes. I think you're going to see a lot of leg kicks from Chris Gutierrez. This is Chris's first fight since knee surgery. When he's won his 2 fights in the UFC, he scored 64 points in both those fights. To me, it's just you don't have a high upside, and that's why I don't personally like it for particularly for GPPs.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I said, I saw the tape on both of them, and Gutierrez should be able to kick the kicking prone Morales like crazy, and I think that he should really pick him apart with his feet, as long as he doesn't get too close. Now, I know Morales mentioned he's been working on checking kicks, but that's something that really takes some time because it's more of a timing thing than a technique thing. I'll tell you, last night I did have a dream, though. So I woke up and I made a lineup with Morales because I saw in my dream Gutierrez threw a leg kick and Morales stepped in and hit him with a Song Yadong right cross. And I'm a little worried about that. So I put Morales in one of my lineups and, we'll see. I hope I'm wrong because I have a lot of Gutierrez.
We always talk about my golden rule of not taking the first fight, and more times than not, usually Pete will text me after that first fight's over. Go, yep, should have listened to you. Should have listened to you. Definitely on the wrong side. Yep. Next up from Ty says, could you guys rank Ivanov, Abreu, Gutierrez, and Sakai for FanDuel cash?
Ivanov, Abreu, who?
Gutierrez and Sakai.
Ooh, I'll tell you something. A little transparent with you guys. I have 0 Sakai, and that's pretty crazy. And the reason I have 0 Sakai is because it's I don't know. Sometimes I can pick a heavyweight fight and think that it's not going to be the most action packed. And Blagoy Ivanov tends to be in those fights where they don't really engage too much. And I think a lot of people are harping on the fact that Sakai could TKO him or knock him out, but Blagoy hasn't been KO'd in his entire career. So I'm not taking that chance or that stand. Could he win a decision over Blagoy? Yeah, sure. But guess what? Blagoy could take him down to the mat anytime he wants also. So I would say Abreu, based on the upside, if he goes the grappling route. If he stands up, he's an idiot, and I'm upset with him. But he needs to go the grappling route. And Ivanov's not terrible. I mean, he's 8,000, and if he goes the grappling route, I'll have some shares.
Next up, like Hill for captain on DraftKings.
I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people are on Hill, and I hope I'm not too biased because he has, looked good. But like I said, I think it's all based on the game plan of the punching bag, Darko Stosic. I cannot stand that man now, and I don't think Abreu is going to make that mistake. So I have very little Hill. But his fighting style does favor FanDuel, so I can't fault you there.
Here's a good question, particularly for people who are new to MMA DFS from Jamal. Any simple concepts a first-time MMA DFSer should be aware of?
Don't stack fights unless you basically are punting one fighter. I don't like that. Search for people that have such a superior advantage over somebody, like where they can totally expose them and get them out early, like Mackenzie Doran over Cyphers. If she takes her down, literally has no chance. Besides that, I would say don't fall in love with box scores. Box scores are misleading. I mean, if you look at Abreu's, I had my girlfriend's brother texting me. He's like, dude, you're talking about Abreu and he only averages 29 points. Yeah, but he's also fought high caliber opponents of the Russians. And, Hill hasn't been tested. Don't fall in love with box scores, okay? Fall in love with game plans and stylistic matchups.
We got another question about Abreu here. When it comes to Hill and Abreu, it comes down to Hill. If Hill can stop the takedown, sure. I'm all on Hill. But and I've talked to somebody who knows him, and they said, look, they understand. They know what happened in the last fight. These coaches have been hammering down wrestling with him. And the question was, I'm doing 4 lines in the big GPP tonight. Is 75% Abreu too much?
I would say yeah. And I know that I've been talking about Abreu, but that's a lot. I do have a lot of Abreu, but I don't know if I have that much. I feel a little bit better about like Chukagian at 7,700, potentially Carlisle. I do like Abreu, but I think that might be a little mix up your lineup a little bit.
Okay, next one. Matthew mentions Chukagian, Dern, or Roberts and Blagoy.
Chukagian, Dern. Who am I? Picking 2 female fighters. What the heck is going on?
And we've talked about this in the past. When female fights, the percentages say the fight is going to go over 2.5 rounds. It's around 65%-ish, even though, Dern should get the stoppage. Look, Chukagian, Shevchenko, pretty. I know, Pete, you don't like that L word. I know you don't like that L word, but it's pretty good lock that thing's going 3 rounds.
What are the odds for finishing that fight? I feel like it got to be like plus 500 or something absurd.
I know when I looked earlier in the week, the over 2.5 rounds was minus 525.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So as I pull it up here, Shevchenko to win inside the distance is plus 825.
Oh my gosh.
Chukagian wins inside the distance plus 575.
What on earth? Okay, like I said, that's probably going to be a stand-up fight, and I don't think either one of them are going to get, finished. And if they engage more because it's a smaller cage, could be looking at a sneaky total for 7,700 Chukagian.
Ben has a comment. Elliott or Royval will be on the winning lineup. It's going to be a scramble fest.
I totally agree. You have to be able to pick the fights and circle the fights that you need to target. And if you want to mix up some variations, do it. The Elliott Royval fight is one of them, and the Quarantillo Carlisle fight. I would be absolutely shocked if both of those are not on the optimal lineup.
Who will be our number one dark horse pick be?
Wow. I mean, dark horse for salary or just like total underdog?
I would say total underdog.
Total underdog. Let me look at the plus money right now.
Call me crazy, Vince Morales.
Better not. Better not. I don't want. I mean, plus 100 for a Brave. What is that? That's not much. I'd say Carlisle plus 115. Yeah. I like him.
Sakai or Blagoy? This is a tough one. Blagoy's plotting. He's not going to move very fast, and he's going to throw those looping punches. The one thing to note about him, he's never been knocked out. And you think about some of the guys he's fought in the UFC, Derek Lewis, Junior Dos Santos, Todd Tuivasa. He's fought some big punchers. So if Sakai wins, I think it's by decision. The interesting thing will be, does Sakai try to get the fight to the ground? Because Blagoy on his back is much different than Blagoy in top position.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would be completely thrown off if he went that route. I mean, Blagoy was stabbed. My man was stabbed in the heart, and, he took a cab to the hospital. Let's be real. So this guy is a savage. Derek Lewis didn't knock him out. So I really have a hard time getting behind Sakai, thinking that he's going to be the one to stop him. But guess what? Father Time's undefeated, as Jason Floyd would say. And, maybe it catches up to him.
Better chance to win, Royval or Carlisle?
I think Carlisle. I think that Royval is the ultimate GPP play that a lot of people are hoping for because of his submission ability and Elliott's submission defensive struggles. It makes sense. And could Royval be too slick and get a quick sub over Elliott because he does tap quite quick? Yeah. But I think Carlisle is, I don't know, man. I could be wrong on the Carlisle pick, but I like him in that fight.
Next up, it says, I've heard both of you tout Woodley, but have also said this may be a fight you don't have to roster. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. I have limes where the main event's not rostered.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's weird to recommend fading a 5-round fight, but Woodley is literally that type of fighter. But I feel like the smaller cage might help him here. It might get him, reinvigorated and back to the action. So I like Woodley.
Morgan asks, do we need the heavyweight fight this week?
I say no. I hate that fight. My gosh.
It's going to be Fight of the Night watch.
I hope not, because I got 0 Sakai, and I told you. Other people have him, no problem. Take that chance. If he wins, he wins. If he performs well, I'll bite the bullet.
Comment from Ben. He goes, if you want to be different, don't play Burns or Woodley. Woodley literally stares and throws 5 strikes per round. Yep. But I don't think Burns will let it be a slow fight. I mean, this is the biggest fight of Burns' career. Yep. he does like to come forward, but I mean, look, it's a huge opportunity for him. And this is a moment for Burns where if you look at the top of the welterweight division, he puts himself in title contention with the win tonight. Does he step up to that table? Can he take that next step in his career? Next up, Chris asked, Pete, are you liking Chukagian more than Abreu at this point?
It's hard to say because I feel like the finishing ability of Abreu is there. I mean, I think he could get Hill into a submission and make him tap. He's done it to better fighters, and he's 15-4 going up against a guy who's only 7-0, hasn't really faced much adversity or been on his back. He was against Darko Stosic, but Darko Stosic literally was just a blanket on top of him and didn't do anything. So I think the GPP upside for Abreu is there, but on the other hand, Chukagian's striking volume, I say Abreu slightly more.
Dern or Kenny for GPP? That's an easy one for me. Yeah, that's Dern.
That's Dern. Imagine if Dern goes out there and puts a stinker, because all my lineups will be smoked. I think I put her in like 95% of my lineup, maybe even more than that. She literally might be. I think she was my first person that I put in after Rodriguez.
Is $1,000 good to leave on the table?
Sure.
Jacob, he asked any interest in Tim Elliott. I think we've talked about that fight.
Yep.
Definitely, we're both interested in that. As I kind of scroll down here, what are your top fights to target tonight?
Yeah, we talked about that. The Elliott Royable fight, the Rodriguez fight, the Dern fight, Quarantillo Carlisle fight, and then you can't go wrong with either the Roberts or Woodley fight, in my opinion.
Chukagian, Elliott, or Hill and Sakai?
Chukagian, Elliott, or who?
Hill and Sakai, or Chukagian and Tim Elliott?
I like the Chukagian and Tim Elliott.
Sakai or Gutierrez GPP?
Gutierrez.
Sakai even all sounds like a fade fight. I would not disagree with that. Could be a winner, gets 55 points.
Yeah, I mean, if that's in the optimal and I don't have Sakai, I think I'm okay with it, just because it's a real tough fight, and I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Morales and Kenny versus Abreu and Roberts.
Abreu and Roberts. I like that a lot.
Do we have to have someone in the Billy Q Spike fight?
I think so. I mean, it's a high-paced fight. And for some reason, if I'm wrong on that, then I think it's going to be a popular fight. And if you fade that fight, you could gain some leverage on some players. But I think it's a fight you need.
Thoughts on Gutierrez versus Morales, early finish or going the distance? I will take the latter.
Yeah, distance.
Lot of questions about Tim Elliott. Everyone's it seems to be, it makes me think that Tim Elliott is going to be a very popular high percentage ownership today.
Yeah, I think that people are listening, and I think that Royable is going to be a very popular cheap option, but I hope that people aren't ignoring Elliott's success in the UFC. So give me Elliott.
Dern or Chukagian in MVP on FanDuel?
Hey, I have both. I do have both. And if Shevchenko tries to take Chukagian down and she defends the takedown and lights her up on the feet and gets, 0.6 every significant strike over there on FanDuel, and she's sneaky. And I don't think many people are going to do that. So that's a very contrarian construction of a lineup. So I like it. But Dern is safe as they come.
Looking to fill one more spot on DraftKings, Cash, Roberts, or Elliott?
DraftKings Cash. I like both, man. How can you go wrong with either one, right? I'd say the safer's Roberts. Based on, I don't know, man. I think it's a tie. I really do.
If Woodley doesn't knock Burns out, he loses. I would disagree with that. One thing about Tyron Woodley is his fight IQ. And I think a question is going to be is if if Burns is constantly pushing that pace in the opening rounds, he's never been to the fourth round or the fifth round. What is that gas tank going to be like? It's an unknown. We don't know.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Burns is not ready for 5 rounds, and I'll tell you that right now. And he's not ready for 5 rounds during a quarantine. It's just the truth. And Woodley's been there, has done that. I would take my shot and chances with Woodley during the quarantine in a 5-round fight.
Michael says, final spot on in a single entry, Abreu, Chukagian, Carlisle.
I have all those guys. So final spot, Abreu, Chukagian, Carlisle. I think Carlisle could surprise people. And the only reason I'm saying that is based on the vulnerability of Quarantillo's style. He gets damaged and has been knocked out in the past, been on his back a lot, eating a ton of damage. If he's underneath the big Spike Carlisle, I think it's going to be a bad night for him. I like the 7,600 Spike Carlisle.
Abreu could have less ownership, though. I think that's something you got to consider. Spike might be very popular.
Very true, because I think a ton of people are going to be on Hill because he's undefeated. He's the only undefeated fighter on the card.
Is Dern more chalky than T. Wood at the MVP spot?
I'd probably say yeah, because I think people are on to Woodley's slow pace.
Will Woodley win by TKO? This is something we talked a little bit about on Thursday.
I think so. I think he's going to clip Burns, or Burns is going to go for some rolling leg lock and try to catch Woodley off guard, and he's going to get pounded out or dropped and pounded out.
By the way, we got under 10 minutes here before the fights are about to start here, so we'll try to get through some of these questions that we have had here. Abreu too risky for DK Cash. Can have Dern, Roberts, and Woodley if I use Abreu.
Can't have them?
You can. I can have Dern, Roberts, and Woodley.
I don't think it's risky. Why is it risky? He's the guy. He has 19 fights against a guy who has 7.
Myron asks, what fight is a must target for GPP?
Elliott Royval fight, then the Dern fight. I think those, and the Quarantillo Carlisle fight. I think you need those 3 at least.
Dern, Carlisle, Elliott, Abreu, Rodriguez, and Woodley GPP. What do you guys think?
Bro, you just
Dern, Carlisle, Elliott, Abreu, Rodriguez, Woodley.
I have that same exact lineup. I love it.
Shevchenko or Chukagian FanDuel GPP?
Chukagian for me.
In a GPP, would you go Dern, Gutierrez, or Bogoy and Roberts?
In that instance, I'd go Gutierrez, Dern.
Next up, I have 9,400 left. Should I draft Derns or Roberts?
I don't think you can go wrong with either. I think the likelihood of a quick finish goes in the hands of Dern, whereas Roberts could be lulled into a firefight with Weaver and it turns into a brawl and potentially goes the distance based on the style. So Dern, I think, has the finishing advantage.
Woodley and DraftKings Cash?
I think so. I mean, I'll bet on the former champ all day.
Roberts or Kenny in DraftKings Cash?
I say Roberts because, the potential. I think Kenny, he's always in a close fight, right, Jason? Like, the guy's always in a close fight. And could we see Smolka getting a decision nod? Yeah. I mean, he's a decision. Kenny's been to the judges a lot. So that's a tough fight.
Chukagian or Abreu in DraftKings Cash?
I think Chukagian, based on her ranking in the UFC and what she's done to the other girls, I think that's a safer play, right?
Yeah. DraftKings Cash, Elliott or Roosevelt Roberts?
I like Elliott. Again, I'm going to go based on resume and what I've seen at the elite level. I haven't seen too much of Roberts to like throw tons of money at him. Yeah, he has potential, but a lot of guys coming up and a lot of prospects have to deal with learning curves. I've had to do it in my career where, you face some guys, you lose some fights and you learn from it. So I like Elliott at the 16-10. He's seen it all.
Do you have to use all your salary on DraftKings?
Nope. No, you do not. Don't feel like you do.
Abreu or Royval on DraftKings GPP?
Okay, so if Royval wins, he gets a nasty highlight reel submission win. I would say Abreu, though.
What are the chances Luis Smolka gets the upset?
He could. The guy's done it since he's been
30%?
back in the UFC. Yeah, since he's been back in the UFC, he's looked so much better. But also look at the guys that he fought. I mean, whereas Casey Kenny just coming off the fight against Merab Dvalishvili, and Casey Kenny was able to negate the grappling of Ray Borg, who is a better grappler than Luis Smolka, despite Luis Smolka's length.
Next up, Woodley and Gutierrez or Blagoy and Roosevelt?
I'd say Woodley and Gutierrez, honestly.
In Super Draft, do you take Royval at 1.5 times or Elliott at 1.25 times?
Elliott all day long.
I'm on Super Draft and I have one spot left. Would you guys take Abreu at a 1.5 multiplier or Roberts at 1.05?
I think I'd go Roberts. Oddly enough.
Speaking of Roberts, another question is, does he have KO power?
You don't need power to get knockouts a lot. You just need timing and speed and making people run into shots and, making, your opponent not see the shots that are coming. So does he have power, like crazy power, like T-Wood power? No. But does he have timing and skill? Yes.
Brad asked about the first fight, whether we like it or not. Overall, personally, it's just kind of my theory. I rarely play the opening fight of the night just because I feel like more times than not I don't get the right side. But in this one, we talked about it a lot. The ceiling to me is just not high.
Yeah, I mean, outside of my dream, I would have had no reason to roster Morales. And since I had the dream that Morales knocks out Gutierrez, I have one lineup with him and a few with Gutierrez because I think Gutierrez's skill level is just beyond Morales.
Kenny or Smolka, we've talked about we like Casey Kenny in that one. Yeah. Elliott Abreu or Kenny Royval in DraftKings GPP?
Elliott Abreu. That's for me.
Woodley Abreu or Burns Kenny for DraftKings cash?
Woodley Abreu. I could be off on this, but I have 0 burns. And that's me being transparent with you guys. I have 0 burns. I really don't. I'm either fading the fight or I'm taking Woodley. I don't think that Burns really has too much of a path to victory.
Quarantillo or Kuchagian DraftKings cash?
I have some lines with Quarantillo based on the cardio issues with Carlisle. I just hope that Carlisle's fixed that and can put Quarantillo on his back. Because if he does that, then the threat of Quarantillo is literally gone. But Chukagian based on a ranking.
Logan asked, does Sakai get the stoppage? I say no, just merely because Blagoy's never been stopped.
No, unless
by strikes. He's been submitted, but has not been finished by strikes.
Yeah, I mean, unless he has some weapons in the cage with him, I don't think he's going to get Ivanov out of there.
Best pick for MVP for FanDuel.
You need scrambling guys on FanDuel, people that can scramble, attempt submissions, get out of submissions, defend takedowns. I think fights to target. I like Elliott in that situation. Carlisle, because Quarantillo is probably going to get lit up on the feet. Those are 2 people I like in the captain spot.
And the final question is, Woodley a must play? I say no.
I say no. I have more Woodley lineups than I don't, though.
And, of course, the fights are about to start here on ESPN with the prelims. Main card going to start at 9 p.m. East time. Of course, we'll be back next week for the UFC 250 strategy show and live versus lock millionaire contest coming up. So, tell you, looking forward to that one. So we're going to be breaking that one down because that's going to be a lot of tape study for Pete there to break these fights down. Of course, you ever have a question for myself or Pete, be sure to hit up Pete on Twitter at Pete the Heat MMA. Of course, I am at Jason_Floyd. Of course, be sure to sign up for the Osmo Plus MMA weekly package for $8.95, where you'll get access to all of Osmo's coveted tools. Go to osmo.com/join today to take advantage of this offer, and be sure to follow Osmo on Twitter at Awesemo_com. Of course, be sure to hit a like here on YouTube. And we'll be back next Thursday for the UFC 250 strategy.